Hey, welcome into Texans Pep Talk. I'm Chancellor Johnson. That is Pep Hamilton, the former offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans in the long sleeve. You feeling the fall weather I see right now?
I'm not feeling the fall weather, but I'm adapting to the fall weather.
Well, DJ has his fall clothes on. I can see there as well.
I'm cold though.
Is that a coochie?
It's something. Something I got from Express. I wanted it to.
It's definitely something. Welcome into Texans Pep Talk. The Houston Texans are 6-4 on the season. Still 2 games up in the AFC South, but apparently, guys, the sky is falling. They collapsed late in that Sunday Night Football game against the Lions. Defensively, they had 5 interceptions. Offensively, not enough. How frustrating is it as a team to force that many turnovers and still not get it done?
I would start by saying the sky is not falling. You know,
sarcasm. Of course.
Week 10.
Yeah.
Week 10. Mm-hmm. All right, it's that time in the season in which you're really just trying to find ways to organize your practice and walkthroughs to get to get guys to the game healthy, right? That's really important. This Texans team, all right, it was great that they started out fast. They came out the gate, like a bowling ball at Butch and I's, just beating other teams, all right, playing their style of football. Really good defense, and you got the ultimate playmaker at quarterback, all right, with a good supporting cast, and they were able to win games that way. But since then, no Nico, no Steph Diggs, that all matters. So in all fairness to where they are right now as a team, they were 1 score away from beating arguably one of the top 3 teams in the National Football League.
DJ, is that a fair evaluation of the current state of the Houston Texans?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think, when you have a hard schedule like they've had, you need your top dogs. They were out. You forgot to mention, they were out Will Anderson also.
Will Anderson.
Yeah, so if you're missing your top dogs going against arguably the best team in the NFC, losing that obviously is no shame. However, losing it the way that they lost is why Texans fans are disappointed. Disappointing
is certainly a word. They've been calling potentially for the offensive coordinator right now, Bobby Slowick's job. To me, I think that's absolutely ridiculous.
Same.
So far right now in the season.
Yep.
Pep, why is that not going to happen anytime soon for the Houston Texans regarding their OC?
It shouldn't even be a part of the conversation at this point. I think Coach Slowick has shown that he can come up with schemes and game plans to put CJ in a position to be the best version of himself.
Right.
All right. He did it throughout last season, and they've had moments this season where, in which they've been very explosive, right? They've been able to score at will. They rolled teams off the field early in the season. All right, but they're all adjusting to not having some key playmakers. We're back at the point in which Joe Mixon is probably back to full strength, right? We're still missing DP, right? We're still missing the backup running back, right? But at the same time, you got to look at just the playmakers and how they factor into the scheme part of it.
Yeah, I absolutely. Like, again, they're getting Nico back this week, and now they're getting Nico back. That's only going to help elevate Bobby Slowick, because it's hard to call plays if you don't got your best playmaker.
It's hard to call plays in general.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby Slowick has done a great job, but he's still growing and learning on the job as well. And he's done an outstanding job, and he's probably going to be a head coach in the next 2 years anyway. So, all right, I think it would be a tremendous mistake for the Texans organization if they decided to make a change like that all of a sudden. The Chicago Bears, for example, in the last 12 years, they've had 10 different offensive coordinators.
Right.
All right. Now, this is another stat that I know because
you taking DJ's job?
I'm sorry. I don't mean to do that, right?
I'm my job right now. You taking my job. Right, you can have it.
Okay, sorry.
We can switch. I'll go call plays.
But I'll say this also. I want to say the number is back since maybe 2006 or 7. You guys were in grade school, right? Okay. There's been over 270 offensive coordinator openings in the NFL. That is the reason right now that we have a quarterback crisis, in my opinion. We had 68 different starting quarterbacks in the National Football League last year, folks. That's a problem.
We'll talk about some of those QB situations a little bit later on in the show, but DJ, from your perspective, why are fans overreacting right now?
I think that fans is short for fanatic. So sometimes they could be a little bit crazy, and I think that, when things don't go the way they expect it to, they have to blame somebody. They don't want to blame D'Amico. D'Amico's the prized possession. CJ's also the prized possession. So they're going to go to the next guy on the list, which is Bobby Slowick. And again, he's only, as Pep said, this is his second year on the job, right? Not even his second full season. This is only the second time he's ever even called plays. So there's a maturation process that he's going through and he's learning. And again, now that he gets Nico back, the offense is going to look a little bit more like how it looked earlier in the season.
Well, talking about this offense with the Houston Texans, they haven't scored in the second half a touchdown since week 6 against the Patriots. That might be one of the reasons why fans are so upset. And then you look at the Lions game, obviously they didn't score at all, helping to that collapse for the Detroit Lions. Pep, for you, how difficult is it to make adjustments in the second half, or why have the Houston Texans not been able to see success in the third and the fourth quarter?
Well, part of it is there's an element of surprise in the first half.
Yeah.
Specifically in the first quarter and well into the second quarter, just the first quarter for sure, first 15, that script of plays that Bill Walsh has made famous, most coordinators, right? We come in with a list of personnel groupings and plays, all right, so that we can now gather information and see how the defense is going to line up and respond to certain offensive schemes, right? Okay, well, when you get to the second half, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes and no longer the X's and the O's.
Right.
You got to have guys that can win one-on-one matchups. All right. Steph Diggs, no Nico, right? Those guys are out. All right. Mechie is starting to maybe find his way.
Right.
Okay. All right. Got to get the tight end more involved. All right. In one coach's opinion. All right. And I think they've done enough, but we hadn't seen as much of Dalton Schultz as we probably saw last year at this point in the season.
And against the Lions, one thing that I noticed, especially on third downs, was they just went man coverage, right? Basically, Robert, one safety high, and said, your guys have to be our guys, and we don't think you guys can do that. And unfortunately, the Lions were proven correct. And that goes back to his point of second half is about the Jimmies and the Joes. And unfortunately, the Texans Jimmies didn't Joe.
I like that there. Well, they'll get a really big Jimmy and a Joe back this week. Nico Collins finally returns from his hamstring injury.
He's coming back from a hamstring
injury against the Cowboys. How big of an impact will having him return back to lineup be for the Houston Texans?
Well, C.J. Stroud's QBR with Nico on the field, 0 to 100, right, is 71. Average is 50. So 71 is high end for quarterbacks. It's an ESPN stat. Without
just trying to sprinkle that one in there for you.
Sprinkling a little bit of that in. But without Nico on the field, his QBR is 41, right? So it's a big tail off. And when Nico was out, the first week when he was out, they scored 41 points against the Patriots. But after that, they averaged 20 points per game, 282 yards per game in terms of yards. And again, C.J. Stroud had his worst QBR of any stretch of his career at 34.5. So everything went into the toilet, you know what I'm saying? So I think getting him back is only going to elevate everybody else, and it's going to slide everybody into their proper roles, So that's where I'm kind of thinking Nico brings back to the offense.
As an offensive coordinator, how much are you celebrating when you get a big star like that back to your lineup?
And we're not celebrating, but we appreciate having the guy that can win the one-on-one matchup.
Sure.
But he's coming off a hamstring. That's a significant injury, right? We're talking about a position in which there is probably going to be at least 4 or 5 occasions where you're going to be required to run over 19 miles per hour,
right?
All right, in the game.
Can you do that?
So I can do that right now. All right, I can run 19 miles per hour.
All right now.
All right, on a treadmill. Anyway, okay, you got me distracted. All right, really. But anyway, on a serious note.
Yeah.
Having Nico back, I still think his role will be limited. I don't know that you can expect him to come out and play 50-plus plays in a game. So we'll see how he impacts the game plan.
That's totally fair.
The part of it that you probably don't pay attention to is the fact that the paranoia that Nico is going to create for the defense and how they have to prepare. We may not see as much one robber, safety in the post, all right, opposite safety rolling down and just patrol the middle of the field and play man coverage on all the wideouts. You may not see that because Nico is a matchup nightmare for smaller DBs.
A nightmare indeed. We will get you guys prepared for the Texans versus Cowboys coming up next after the break.
We're just looking for a really cool atmosphere. I think it's one of the coolest stadiums to play in. So our guys, it'll be a lot of our guys' first time going there and playing, but we expect to see some good support from our fans there as well. So the guys will embrace the environment there. It's all about playing well, in that place. If our guys go out and execute well, be a really cool place to play.
Micah back, the they're a great team. So, we got to be able to be on our A game just like every week. And, they present some challenges, and, we got to be ready for it. And I think number 13 is a really good player, too, a young rookie who is making a lot of plays.
A Monday Night Football Texas Tango in Jerry's World as the Texans will take on the Cowboys for that primetime matchup. What will you be looking for on that Monday night?
The Texans got to win by at least 2 scores.
Why?
I think that they need for themselves that mojo of we can play dominant football. Because CJ talked about that after the Jets game. We have to play dominating football. This is an opportunity when you're playing somebody that's wounded to put them away, not play around, and get the W. So that's for me what I'm looking for. Can they run the ball? Can they put up points against a defense that gives up 28 points per game, 31st in the NFL?
I agree with DJ. They should be looking for some consistency in all 3 phases. All right, offense, defense, special teams.
Right.
And, at the end of the day, style points don't matter in the National Football League.
Right.
All right, but you want to go out and play efficient and explosive football.
Right.
Not just the Texans offense. Their defense, that front four, the pass rush is going to, make it really challenging for Cooper Rush or Trey Lance or whoever they decide to put out there at quarterback.
Right. We haven't really seen the Houston Texans play a complete game since that New England Patriots game on the road there. The Dallas Cowboys, they will have Micah Parsons as an OC. How much of a game wrecker can that guy be?
Oh, he's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
He is arguably the toughest matchup, one-on-one matchup for tackles in the National Football League, just because of the combination of speed and size, right? Not size, but speed and ability to bend, right? Yeah. And his size, it's not that he's a bigger edge rusher. He's a smaller guy, and so he can get low, which makes it even more challenging for the tackles.
Right, absolutely. We'll see how many times he goes up against Tunsil. I would love to see that matchup, honestly. But again, Micah being there, big challenge. But I've seen other teams, even with Micah's out there, being able to put up 40 on the Cowboys. The Saints did that, and then they went on a 7-game losing streak and then fired their coach. So again, for me, it's all about execution. Can they put forth a dominating performance? Because you don't want to let this team hang around. Now you're squeaking by the skin of your teeth. I know you remember back in 2022, you guys went in there kind of wounded into Jerry World where the Cowboys were high and flying, and you guys took them down to the last possession.
Yeah, and the game plan, which I'm sure we'll see some of an emphasis of running the football and forcing Micah to defend the run. Take some football out of him. If you just allow him to pin his ears back and rush the passer, he will be problematic for the Texans offense.
Speaking of Micah Parsons, he had some really interesting comments last week after the Dallas Cowboys lost yet another game. I want you to hear it. And Pep, I definitely want your response on that as a former coach.
That's above my pay grade about if Mike is coaching again next year. But, all coaching aside, Mike can leave and go wherever he wants. But guys, I kind of feel bad for guys like Zach Martin and guys who might be on their last year or on their way out.
This was really talked about a lot this week. Pep, what did Micah say that was so wrong?
It's a situation in which you want to avoid bringing attention to your locker room, to your organization, to your building. All right, of any sort that's going to take away from being focused on preparing for the next opponent. And so basically just mitigate, avoid the distractions as best you can.
What did you make of Micah Parsons' comments?
You can look at it both ways. You can look at it both ways. He's really saying, I'm just trying to, I really want to play for my dog. Zach Martin, who's been a great player. Another side is, hey, you don't say that about somebody that you want to still be your coach down the line. You know what I'm saying? So you really look at it both ways. I think both sides, if you want to go either take, you would be right. But for me, I'm going to take it as, if that's a guy you really want to be your coach beyond this year, you don't say that.
Mike McCarthy certainly on the hot seat for the rest of the season.
Certainly on the hot seat. That's a strong statement.
His contract expires at the end of the season.
I'll tell you what, we'll revisit this conversation at the end of the season. We'll see if he's still around over there in Jerry's World. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Texans Pep Talk. There's been some QB movement over this past week. Anthony Richardson has returned back to the starting lineup for the Indianapolis Colts. We also saw Bryce Young starting to pick things up over there in Carolina. So I want to talk about situations around the league. We're talking specifically about young QBs in their first or second year. And I had the guys here at Texas Pep Talk rank their top 5 out of the first and second year QBs. DJ, we'll start with you. You've got Mr. Stroud number 1 as far as best QB situations.
Yeah, absolutely. The pieces that he had coming into the season, right? You had Stephon, Tank, Nico, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon, continuity on the offensive side of the football, a solid offensive line. Yeah, like he's easily number 1. Jaden Daniels. I always love a young quarterback getting a number 1 wide receiver. And I think Scary Terry, even though
Not talked about enough.
against the Eagles,
He struggled.
he was invisible. But that's just one bad game.
Yep,
you know
yep,
what I mean?
yep,
And I love the situation that the Falcons did by drafting a quarterback and letting him sit. I know he's older. People talk about him like he's a grandpa. People talk about he's Pep age. You know what I'm saying? He's not Pep age.
I've heard that too.
You know what I'm saying? But again,
I run 19 miles per hour.
sometimes you do need to let a quarterback sit and let him learn, because a lot of quarterback is, Pep can allude to, it's mental, not as much physical.
Bo Nix, we haven't talked about him a lot this year, but he
plays some solid football.
Yes.
He got Sean Payton, even though, I think Sean Payton is a little bit, overrated in the media, but I still think he's a good coach overall. And then Caleb Williams, it's crazy how he's 5th now. Because before the season, people probably had him 2nd under Stroud. Because he had the 3 perceived number 1 wide receivers and a good offensive line. And Shane Wald, we thought he'd be a good OC, good running game with Swift. But that situation looks like travesty, but a lot of that falls back on him too.
No Bryce Young and no Anthony Richardson in your top 5. Let's look at Pep's top 5 young QB situations now. And I know your list looks somewhat similar, but a few tweaks here and there.
At the top of my list is CJ Stroud.
Okay.
And I would try and preface things by referencing a presentation that we did on an early episode of Texans Pep Talk. The incubation phase.
Right.
That's the plan. That's the master plan for that quarterback. Okay? He has the support that he needs. All right. And the plan from the top down, we're talking about starting with our ownership, all right, Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans, and then the offensive coordinator, that continuity and synergy. All right, all of that is in place. But the things that you guys didn't talk about, which I wouldn't expect you to because you're journalists, you're reporters, all right?
Is that shade? Did he just throw shade?
A little shade, just a little shade, right? All right, is they have a good defense.
Okay.
They have a good defense. And when he came in as a rookie, the expectations, all right, were not very high.
That's true.
All that matters, okay? All right, Bo Nix. In no way am I saying that Bo Nix is playing better than Jaden Daniels.
Right,
I'm not
right.
saying that.
We're talking about
Jaden Daniels is this year's CJ Stroud.
Sure. Right.
Okay? All right? But Bo Nix is in a situation in which the Broncos defense, they're playing good football.
Yeah.
They're playing a lot better than what people expected them to play coming into this season.
Top 5 units so far.
That's right.
Do we owe Sean Payton an apology from last year? So much was said about their struggles last year. He's gotten it right so far this season.
Yep, I think Vance Joseph has done a very good job of just making sure that they feel a good defense. Sean Payton, I give him credit for de-emphasizing the quarterback, handing the ball off, right? And now when you look at Bo Nix play, a lot of times he's not trying to drop back and throw the ball in obvious passing situations, so he's able to function. So I like that situation, all right, that he's in Denver, right? All right, the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, just like CJ Stroud, in my opinion, he's an elite leader. All right, the team around him, they support him, they love him, and he's made all types of plays thus far in the season. Okay, defensively, they're not as good at stopping the run. All right, the games that he play in, all right, he has to be the reason that they have a chance to win the game. They're often, all right, challenged to score more points, all right, in the first half and just come out and score a lot of points. I shouldn't say score more points.
Now, you've always been a Penix believer.
Big believer in Penix, but I love Raheem Morris. All right, I think, they got a master plan for Penix, and sitting behind a guy like Kirk Cousins is going to be really good for him. And I think Caleb is to be determined. All right, in all fairness to the kid, all right, you bring him into Chicago, And now all of a sudden they start out, they play okay in a couple games early in the season, and now the expectation is for him to lead that team to the Super Bowl.
Right.
They play good defense, okay? He got some pieces around him, but you got to look at it this way. They're one Hail Mary defense away from being the Cinderella story across the league.
Yep.
Now, what would it take for either Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young to maybe jump in that top 5? Bryce Young, back-to-back weeks now where he's been able to pick up wins. Can their situations maybe be turned around before the end of the season?
Well, also Drake May should be included in that bunch of guys. You got Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Drake May. All right, they're on teams that are probably in more of a, not Anthony Richardson as much, a rebuild mode. Drake May and Bryce, they're in organizations in which they're rebuilding. Anthony Richardson right now is in the midst of just some, I would say, turmoil, right? But you can't teach experience. He needs to go out and play. He was a 50% passer at the University of Florida. All right. I don't know who thought it would be a lot easier for him to come into the National Football League and face the Nico Ryans defense, and now all of a sudden come out and rip him apart passing the football. They can't be surprised that he needs, just a little time. His curve is a little bigger than maybe what CJ and Jaden Daniels' curve is, right?
Absolutely. Now, before we get to week 11, before we get out of here, Texans, Cowboys, they go on the road. Houston does. Will they win in Jerry'sburg?
I think they'll win 31-10.
Okay.
31-10.
The Texans will be the state champs.
I like that.
I like that. That's a good one.
I like that a lot. Thanks for watching Texans Pep Talk. We will see you guys next week.